because 5 months earlier, I was able-bodied and was like anybody else. I had a life, I had a career, my own business, I had a girlfriend, and I had friends. I was living down in North Carolina. And I also, I raced BMX for fun. That was something I did for 20 years prior. And one night I was at my local track practicing, and I was on a section of the track I knew really well. And I lost control. And when I hit the ground, my whole body went numb. And by the time I stopped tumbling, I knew what had happened. I couldn't move, and I was struggling to breathe. And they called paramedics, and they came on the scene. And then they called a medevac. And at this point, I was in a lot of pain. I felt like I was like laying on a block of ice. And I remember I was struggling to breathe, and the paramedic got loaded in the helicopter, and I remember the paramedic putting his hand on my shoulder, because I think he knew I could feel below my chest, and just told me to relax and to try to breathe, and that everything was going to be okay. And I remember as we took off, thinking to myself, if I never am going to walk again, I really hope this helicopter goes down, because I can't live a life like that. And that's probably something in the career that you're going to be going into, you might run into a lot with people that you're going to be seeing people at the worst point in their lives, and if they're not there at that point, they will be in the following months. And sometimes it's just something small, like telling a patient that they're going to be okay, and letting them know that they're not alone, can go a long way. And so 5 months later, as I was at home, who do we see? As I was at home refusing treatment from my mom, my dad called 911, and paramedics came to the house, and I know they probably had no idea what to say or do, because I had intended to refuse treatment from them as well. And but they came, and they didn't have to say anything. They were compassionate. They listened to me as I told them my story, and told them what I was going through. And you're suffering so much. I know it. I'm so sorry what you're going through. But them just being there and listening and being compassionate was enough to kind of bring me in off the ledge and accept treatment. And sometimes patients, we don't necessarily need all the answers, because we know sometimes there are no answers. We just want somebody that's willing to listen and be sympathetic and let us know that we're not alone, in the world. And what's interesting is that there are people that were compassionate that I will remember for the rest of my lives. My lives, I only have one. Well, the rest of my life. And I only met them a day. I only knew them for a couple of days, but I'll remember their compassion, and that guy in the helicopter that put his hand on my shoulder and told me I'd be okay. And when I think about hoping that helicopter would go down, I think I'm glad it didn't, because I've since learned that things weren't better right after this paramedics visited my house and I changed my mind, but things did get better day after day and month after month with my family and my friends and people I never would have expected to enter my life. I managed to rebuild a life, and it's a life I'm very grateful to have, and I'm very lucky to have. And so a lot of times I think back to that paramedic telling me I'd be all right, and I go, yeah, I smile, because I think, yeah, he was right. I'm all right. I'm okay. And I think that's one thing that in the careers that you're going into, to realize is that sometimes you're going to be in situations where you're going to be saying to somebody it's going to be okay, and they might be in rough shape, and you might have trouble believing it yourself, but you're going to say it. And one thing I think that hopefully we show you is that okay doesn't always look like the way you think it's going to look. You know, I think if 10 years ago I saw myself now physically, I would have thought to myself, I'm not okay. I failed to recover. I failed to walk again, you know. And but what I would have been failing to see was that there's more than just a physical recovery. And sometimes the physical recovery has its limits, you know, but then there's something called an emotional recovery. And sometimes an emotional recovery is limitless. And you can recover in ways you never could have imagined. And, you know, it's where I would have seen myself as a failure 10 years ago. I look back on what I've been through and where I am today, and I think to myself, where I am, this is the greatest thing I've ever accomplished, you know? And every day that I'm here and continue on just builds on top of that, you know? And so that's something I think that is important, that even when you see somebody that, you know, has shot half their face off, or you see somebody that's not able to move, or see somebody that's their limb is not with their body, you know, and you might say this person's physically never going to be whole again, but you never know where they emotionally, the point that they can get to, you know. So that brings me back to my joke. The 9-fingered occupational therapist. So a few hours ago I was talking to a friend of mine on Facebook that I've known for years. I told him I was going to be giving this presentation. I was a little anxious because my dad and my stepmom are here, and I was going to be bringing a dog that just, I don't know, would just not settle down. And he told me, you know, you should tell a joke. And it's not usually what I do. And I said, well, how about I tell a story about a 9-fingered occupational therapist? And he laughed and he said, yeah, that'd be great. So here it is. So once upon a time, there was a guy who was in the military, and he was driving home one day, and there was something laying in the road in front, you know, in front of him or something. He picked it up and ended up severing his index finger off. And they weren't able to save the finger. And the struggle he went through in terms of recovering, and it inspired him to become an occupational therapist. And he ended up being one of my occupational therapists, like the first one of the first ones I had when I moved back up here. And he had an awesome sense of humor, and he's compassionate, and he helped me learn some skills. I'm a quadriplegic, so there's certain ways I'm able to manipulate things, but I needed to learn the skills, and he got me started in that direction. And he and I have stayed in touch here these past 10 years. And he's the one that told me I should tell a joke tonight. That's something that I think is just a testament to how, you know, the career that you're going into can leave an impression on people. That for you it's just a moment, it's just part of your job, but if you treat them right, they'll remember you the rest of their lives. And so I just want to thank you all for the career that you've chosen and that you're going into. So thank you very much.